Hello guys, today I'm gonna present my final project, which is on signal research and combination. And just to clarify in advance, I'm gonna use signal and alpha interchangeably throughout the slides. So let's dive into it. Let me introduce the very simple setup and some basic information here. Our goal is to use the data at or before time t, and then generate a vector of numbers that indicate the stock's relative performances on time t plus 1. Then we can take long positions on the top ones and short the bottom ones. There are multiple ways to do that. For example, we can pick the top 20 percentile and give each of the stocks an equal weight. But here I'm gonna demean the vectors cross-sectionally within each day and treat each vector as the stock weights. The data we're gonna use can really be any sort of data. Price and volume data, fundamental data, analyst ratings, news, social media, just other kinds and any other kinds of like alternative data. I mean, for simplicity purposes, I use S&P 500's constituents, daily price and volume data, and my stock selection and backtesting universe would be S&P 500 as well. It's very, very hard, if not totally impossible, to capture effective and robust signals nowadays using only daily price and volume data. It's also super challenging to capitalize on really large cap stocks because they're very efficiently priced. Again, the setup is for illustration purposes. It's just a super basic framework to be built upon. So the work procedure is that we, collect daily S&P 500 constituents data that includes, open, high, low, close, adjusted close, and daily volume. We collect that from Yahoo Finance. And then after getting the data, we would, finding the signals and back testing our signals. And third steps is after finding multiple signals, we're gonna, combine them. I mean, or even if we don't find, effective signals, we can just show how we're gonna combine them. So the first step involves two challenges. The first challenge is that, when rebalancing, companies may be added or removed based on, eligibility, criteria. And, the index gets rebalanced 4 times a year. So I can't just get all the historical prices of the current S&P 500 stocks. My back testing time frame starts in March 2016. So I collected the rebalancing information since then, as a solution. My approach was that if a stock ticker had ever been included in the index, it would then be my universe thereafter. I try to be as comprehensive as possible, but also avoid any look ahead bias. And the second challenge is that ticker symbol changes due to various reasons. So as I said, I put all the data from Yahoo Finance, and if a symbol once exists but does not currently exist, then no search results would show up. For example, the ticker FB had been included in S&P 500 long before the start of my backtesting timeframe. But the ticker symbol FB does not return any historical prices because it is now named Meta. I mean, my approach was just to get rid of all those values. So basically, my data on the company Meta would only include its historical price and volume information since its name was changed to Meta. This for sure introduces selection bias and possibly leads to risk underestimation. I do recognize that. It doesn't necessarily lead to better results though, because ticker symbol changes due to various reasons, and our approach here takes advantage of both higher and lower ranked stocks, according to the signal, according to the vector of numbers. So it doesn't present that much of a serious issue. Next, yeah, so this part is, the framework of signal finding and some operations. I wrote some convenient functions so that I can try out or come up signals easily. I divided them into like 3 categories. Time series processors, I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. I'm not gonna spend too much time on that. And then cross-sectional processors, it includes, I mean, those are pretty self-explanatory as well. So for example, rank um and rank within sector, because those are just applied cross-sectionally. This operations are applied cross-sectionally within each sector. I mean, you define the sector. It can be like industry or, any sort of group. Right. So, here, so for example, let's say rank and group rank. We need those because if after we apply it, if the performance worsens, then the original signal doesn't work, since it means that its exposure to a single or a very small amount of stocks or a particular industry is too heavy. If there's any position concentration in one particular security or group of securities or a particular sector or industry, we can anticipate that we are taking a high risk if something systematic happens to that security or group of securities or that industry. And other processors here, it's just it's pretty self-explanatory as well. So for example, long short demand here is that, the default here is long equals short, which is a dollar neutral split. And we also would want to test if a signal earns consistently on the long side, because short sell has more restrictions and involves more fees. And there are some functions that I'd like to add. So for example, risk factor neutralization, it will help filtering out the risk and returns driven by other factors than what I would like to capture. For example, if a signal is designed to capture some specific stock characteristics like news sentiment, but doesn't account for trading volume, then I might indeed be capturing the effects of volume-related effects rather than the pure effects of the characteristics that I'm interested in. And let's say if you're not intentionally targeting volume, but your strategy ends up being exposed to it, then you're taking on risks associated with those factors. Then the returns might not purely reflect the intended signal, but also the systemic effects associated with trading volume. If one is not aware of this, they might wrongly attribute performance to their signals when it's actually coming from like volume related effects. I mean, I just took volume as a risk factor here. And it is always better to be different from others and dilute exposure to common risk sources, since those are most susceptible to overcrowding and herding effects. When a lot of capital is concentrated in a particular investment strategy or factor, then something triggers selling. The reaction can be swift and amplified, leading to high volatility. As the amount of capital chasing a particular factor increases, like the share of returns from that factor diminishes while the risk to the portfolio from holding it increases. And just to add on, the within sectors, the sector information I used is described in detail in my Jupyter Notebook slides. Yeah, there are total 11 sectors, I believe. And here are my alphas slash signals. They're just the simple and sweet, based on very simple ideas. So for example, if I take the skewness of returns, that means returns are rather concentrated on the high ends, because I take positive skewness as an indicator of positive returns the next day. And we want to make sure that each signal would render numbers of the same magnitude as well. I'd also like to address that what can be done is really limited given the data we have and given, the universe we are operating in. But the goal is to, test out the framework rather than finding the most effective alpha signals. So here are the 3 alphas here. Backtesting framework, I came up with this. I wrote the code to come up with this matrix to evaluate a signal. So for example, for the second signal in the previous page, to use yesterday's returns as a reverse indicator, to predict the next day's returns. And yeah, the results are shown here. And I'd like to address that the date is from March 21st, 2016, through December the 1st, 2023. So arguably the cumulative P&L would be higher given, the positive performance in 2016. Yeah, now let's move to signal combination here. So basically we're just treating a signal, excuse me, a typo here, a signal as an asset and optimize the weights to maximize the Sharpe ratio. We know the alpha returns, and basically that's all we need, to get the weights in order to maximize the Sharpe ratio. After we get the rates, it's essentially just a linear combination. A linear combination of alphas. And then the results after we had our combinations. So the optimal weights for the 3 alphas here are, 0, 0.38, 0.615, 6.2. And the Sharpe ratio of this portfolio is 0.695. And I also calculated the S&P 500 Sharpe ratio since March 21st, 2016, which is 0.452. So the result we got is slightly better than the index in terms of the Sharpe ratio. So that concludes this presentation. Let me know if you have any questions. You can leave, as a comment. I'll see you.